Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting and work session for Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. If you'd like to join in and listen via conference call, the phone number is 360-252-9020 and the pin is 1234. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board, also present as vice chair, Commissioner Ty Messer, the Commissioner Gary Edwards in the house. County Manager Renato Chavez is here. Is Robin Campbell in yet?
Not yet.
Nope. Okay. And we have Thurston County Health Officer Dr. Abdulmalik is here, and PHSS Director Shelley Slaughter, our homeless coordinator Keely Marino, and a host of others. It's an all-star cast today, and we're going to begin with our homeless strategies with Keely Marino.
Good morning, Keely Marino, Public Health and Social Services. I'm here with a brief update, starting off as we have been recently with an update on Community Action Council's eviction prevention and rental assistance program. To date, they have served 327 households. They have paid 646 future months of rent and 310 back months of rent. As far as signed contracts with landlords, that's $915,808 spent already. But if you include the unsigned agreements, the ones that the landlords have not yet signed, they're at $1,151,000 spent, which means they're very near, within under $200,000 near the halfway point. And so these funds are distributed in half chunks. So the Community Action Council would have had to spend down half of it in order for the second half to be released. So that second half should be released fairly soon. With the high volume of people making appointments for this program, they're expecting to have their final appointments as of November 2nd. That may change depending on the volume, but it's moving very quickly. And so many households in our county are being served, which is a great thing. As for other updates regarding homelessness in our county, we continue to work side by side with City of Olympia staff. I have been meeting at least once or twice a week with Teal Russell, the Olympia homeless coordinator, with all things going on in Olympia regarding homelessness, as well as meeting with the technical team subgroups for the Regional Housing Council. We're working diligently on all of these issues and continue to monitor and strategize around responses to crises in the community related to homelessness.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Keely? Go ahead, Ty.
Keely, at TRPC this week, we had a presentation from Olympia on its plan, that the kind of like the final product of their community outreach sessions and stuff. I forget what they call it, one community or something like that plan.
One community.
Anyway, in response to that, Pete Komet, who was there at the meeting from Tumwater, brought up, he brought this up about a year ago about the idea of the county somebody, and he suggested the county tracking the number of available subsidized units total within the county and having a rolling sort of inventory, so that when we add units, we know how, and then when units become, because he described, so what happened was he looked into this about a year ago and realized there wasn't a centralized inventory. So he started doing the research and putting a spreadsheet together and found that there's a lot of subsidized units out there that they got a tax credit, they were part of a tax credit program, and they had to keep them subsidized for a particular number of years. But then at a certain point, there's an expiration. And so those units basically fall off the roll, so to speak. Meanwhile, we're trying to add new units. So just to have a sense of like what's available at a given time could be useful, he argued. And he gave me all of his data and I gave it to Tom. And Tom at that time said, yeah, this is really interesting and let me see what I can do with this. And I never really heard much more about it, but Pete was bringing it back up again this past Friday, which, led me to think that we never really had that discussion and got that sort of central inventory concept rolling. So I just wanted to throw it back out to you to If Tom were here, I'd ask him, but maybe if your team could talk about, if there's capacity or if that makes sense to kind of manage that so that we have a better sense of exactly the number of subsidized units and try to, keep track of. It seemed like it would really help with coordinated entry and other things.
Absolutely. And I see Tom is online. And
Okay,
I will speak on behalf of him unless he pops up, and that we'd be glad to continue that work.
perfect. Thank you. Just want to share that.
Commissioner Edwards, anything for Keely?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you very much.
Keely, you always make me proud. Thank you very much for the hard work you do.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Now
Keely.
we're going to move on to a COVID-19 update with Shelley Slaughter and Dr. Abdulmalik.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
In Washington State, as of yesterday, there have been 90,276 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Washingtonians, with 2,158 deaths. Here in Thurston County, this is again as of our latest data yesterday, 1,344 Thurston County residents confirmed with COVID-19 to date. In the last week, there have been 121 new cases of COVID-19, marking our highest number of cases in a single week since the beginning of this pandemic. There have been 17 deaths, none to report in this last week. 101 people have been hospitalized to date, with 9 new hospitalizations of Thurston County residents in the last week. There have been 1,027 released from public health isolation and quarantine. 2.9% of positive people have tested positive, or excuse me, out of our 45,492 total tests to date, our current positivity rate is 2.9% in this last week. There have been 10 congregate care outbreaks to date, with 1 confirmed and several others under investigation that we expect to report this week. Our case rate has risen due to the number of new cases this last week to 32.5 per 100,000 population over the last 14 days. 71% of our hospital beds are occupied, 9 of those again by COVID patients. PPE supply chains are currently stable, and we're continuing to monitor this rise in new cases and prepare for the upcoming winter season. And with that, I will pass it on to our health officer, Dr. Demiana Abdulmalik, to provide some further information and context to this data.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Doc.
So we did have our week with the highest number of COVID cases that we've had since the pandemic began, with 121 cases. When I see a spike like this, my first inclination is to go back and actually look at the physical charts. So I've gone through and looked at everything that we've completed since the 24th, when we started to see this dramatic rise. So some of this rise may have been due to delayed presentation from the Labor Day holiday. Another thing that I noticed was that a number of folks would have symptoms and then wait, 3, 4, 5, even 7 days before getting tested. And during that time, they would not know that they were positive. So what we're asking all of Thurston County residents to do is to stay home when you're sick, get tested early if you have COVID symptoms, and stay home after the test until you get that confirmation. And of course, also stay home if you've been instructed to do so by the Public Health Department. Because if you've been named as a close contact, which is less than 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes. We're seeing, so that's kind of the beginning of the beginning of this upward trend. so these early cases sometimes had travel out of state. And then as we progress along our bump, we're seeing what we saw back in July and August, which is, spread within households and within family and friend groups. So people who are in close contact with one another. We are continuing to monitor this, and I'd just like to remind everyone to do their part to stop the spread of COVID-19, wearing masks in public, avoiding gatherings, large gatherings, avoiding unnecessary travel, covering their cough, maintaining 6 feet of distance with non-household members. Just as a reminder that the community transmission rate, so the rate of COVID-19 in our community, is one of the biggest factors, and it's one of the most important ways that we can keep all of our most vulnerable populations safe. So our folks in long-term care facilities, our folks in the schools, by keeping our community rates down, that's our best way to contribute to keeping everybody in our community, including the most vulnerable, safe. Thank you.
Gary, any questions of the doctor?
The only question I'd have is, are we noticing anything from schools opening, maybe like the college over here, St. Martin's, where they have out of area students showing up? And are we getting a count from them or any of the private schools that are open? Have we noticed anything?
So we have not had any school-related outbreaks to date.
Okay, thank you.
Ty?
Could you describe for me the testing? How many folks are getting? Is it about the same number that get tested every day? And if that's true, how does that come about? I mean, obviously, if somebody feels like they have a symptom, they run and get tested, but our positivity rate is, it's 1.8 or 2.9. It's, it's been somewhere between 1 and 4, right? So I'm just trying to understand, like, who's the testing universe and how does that stay consistent day to day? What drives the number of folks that get tested?
So that's a really complicated question, and that's definitely one that we're looking at how to address when we're talking to folks who are testing positive, to get some insight from our community as well. But yes, so folks who have at least one symptom are eligible to get tested, or folks who have been labeled folks who have been identified as a close contact should also be tested. In terms of the day-to-day testing rates, I don't have that. I don't have that data in front of me. I can definitely look and see if I can get that to you. But in terms of the percent positivity rate, that tells us that more gives us a ratio almost of the number or it gives us a better sense of disease transmission, because as transmission rates go up within the community, that the percent positive rate also tends to go up. We were thinking, so during the wildfire with the smoke, one of our testing sites, our drive-through testing site that we share at Hawks Prairie, that we work with Providence on, which is a close community partner, had to close for safety reasons. So that definitely impacted the testing for that time period. So there was a decrease in access. But other than that, our testing access has remained stable in terms of people who need a test being able to get one with ease. So we're kind of looking at the same ease of testing, with the exception of the wildfires that we had before the spike. And I can look to see if we can get some numbers on the number of tests per day.
Have that number. Our average tests per day in the last week have been 307 is the average. So, and then whenever we
You broke up a little bit, Shelley. Is that 300 and what per day? I'm sorry, can you repeat the number?
Sorry, my apologies. 307.4 is the average daily number of tests that Thurston County residents have taken in the last week. And that includes all sites, community-based testing sites, as well as testing at any lab or healthcare provider's office.
I guess my question, thank you, Shelley, that's helpful to know, but, and I guess I was just trying to figure out, like, does that just happen organically based on people who have symptoms and people who are being contact traced? Like, is it just about 300 people show up at the various sites, or is there an active, or do we have to go out and actively, hey, we want to make sure we're getting 300 people tested a day, so we go out and do something more active to make sure that we're getting tests running through the system? Or is it a passive, like it just kind of organically happens that's just based on how we've got everything set up and the information that we've got out there, that's how many people show up per day? Because it's like, in order for me to, every day we get the case count, and for me to understand how meaningful that is, you kind of need to know, what number, what's driving the testing that's resulting in the case count, so that I can. Dr. A, you're nodding your head. Maybe I was making some kind of sense there.
Yeah, so it does happen organically.
Okay.
With few exceptions, in terms of our long-term care facilities with the serial testing, but out in the community, this all happens organically.
Okay, thank you.
I would say, however, though, that it is important that we have robust testing accessible in our community for our data to be accurate, and so that we can control the spread of COVID-19. So we've been making concerted efforts to increase community-based testing sites, mobile clinics, and working with our partners to ensure that we have as much access as possible in Thurston County. One of the metrics that we have in our phase 3 is to have enough testing available. Currently in Washington State, very few counties are able to meet the levels of testing needed for the population. So we continue to find ways to increase testing availability and ensuring that we have enough testing supplies and lab processing capacity as we go into this next phase. A really important thing to pay attention to is that percent positivity, which is why we share it every week. Our target for Thurston County is to have 2% or less. When we start to see that number go up to 2.9% in the last week, or at some of our peak weeks in the summer, we were upwards of 3 to 4%, as Dr. Abdulmalik mentioned. That's a real concern when we start to see that number go up. Because that can be an indicator that we have increased community spread. So that's something that we track, and we're continuing to work on our testing strategies in Thurston County.
Shelley, could you provide an update on the mobile testing sites that we're currently working on testing units? I believe we purchased 2 ambulances, and they're in the process of being outfitted.
Yes, we have purchased 2 ambulances that have been converted to be mobile testing vehicles, and we will be using those vehicles at community-based testing sites and clinics throughout Thurston County. Our goal is to have community-based testing available 7 days a week in various geographic areas of Thurston County. We're focusing our efforts on rural Thurston County right now, where there's less testing availability. So we want to make sure that we're reaching people and making it as easy as possible. So if you see an ambulance in your community that says Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, that is free COVID testing, and we'll be advertising those those sites and locations, as well as dates and times that are open to anyone in Thurston County. Any member of the public may go and access testing while we're there. We're advertising that on social media, our website, radio, and other ways. And I will provide a schedule to the commissioners in an upcoming meeting so you know where we'll be and when. That's in addition to community-based testing sites that we are offering targeting other underserved populations, such as those experiencing homelessness in our community. We've been offering those pop-up testing sites regularly for several months now.
Thank you. I had three questions. I only have two. Thank you, Romero. Number one, Commissioner Edwards talked about the colleges, but my question is, what's the rules regarding the kids, elementary kids, in playgrounds? The reason I ask is I saw one of our elementary schools, the playground had about 15 to 20 kids, about first, second grade age, all playing in the playground, no masking, and there must have been adult supervision, but I didn't see adults around. But they were all in close proximity on the slides and whatnot. What are the rules regarding the schools and the kids in playgrounds? Either one of you, Dr. A or Shelley, I don't know.
So the rules are the same. So, you know, masking in public areas and maintaining 6 feet of distance. There are also CDC cleaning recommendations as well for frequently touched structures. And that forms the basis of infection control for those folks. I don't know if you have something to add, Shelley.
And the age is 5. It's mandatory from 5 on up. 5-year-olds on up is mandatory. Okay. Did you have anything to add, Shelley?
Hutch, could I add something to that?
Sure.
I think there was something on the news today about King County opening up a whole bunch of playgrounds for kids, you know, taking the restrictions off, sounded like. I'm not saying the restrictions aren't there about social distancing and masks and stuff, but whatever that was that came out on the news today, I'd sure like to see us be in the similar compliance, because they're in worse shape than we are. And I think that becomes confusing to the public to see our local news media portraying one activity and maybe us not being in step with that. Now, I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but at least could you take a look at that and see if we can't kind of mesh with them somehow.
Are you suggesting that in King County it was letting the kids, or they open up the parks with no restrictions? Well, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and they said, you know, wash your hands before you play, wash your hands when you're done. But it sounded like they were letting up on the restrictions and opening up all the play areas having to do with public parks, at least. So I'm just asking, could you take a look and yeah, so we could kind of be on the same page. I think that really mixes people up when they hear one thing about what we're doing and they see something else, a lot more visible maybe on the local news.
I agree with the confusing the public, but I'd rather think been in lockstep with a smarter strategy than relaxing the rules. When I see the age groups of 7-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 5-year-olds getting COVID, that concerns me. That's why I was asking what the rules are, if they've been changed at the OSPR at the school level, because it was an elementary school in their playground during school hours when these kids were playing. Go ahead, Ty.
If you want to get our policies in line with King County so that we don't create confusion, I got a whole list of issues that we could work together on doing that outside this context.
Okay. The other question I had, did you have anything to add on that school stuff, Shelley?
No, I would just say we're happy to look into that further. I believe that certain city parks within King County, those cities that run their Parks and Recreation Department, have made decisions to open their playgrounds with the health guidelines that have been consistent from DOH and from local public health that Dr. Abdumalik just shared. the importance of physical distancing and for parents and adults supervising those kids to exercise personal responsibility to make sure to keep those kids safe and limit the interactions with other kids that could expose them to COVID-19.
So they opened the parks but didn't relax the rules? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Again, I don't know the specifics. I haven't read those specific city parks plans or anything like that to be able to comment. But in general, our public health guidelines have remained the same for play structures.
Okay, I don't like anybody hearing about anybody getting COVID, but especially a child, if there's lifelong after effects or ill effects. My other question is, when we do testing, it takes 2 to 3 days to get the results. Is that correct? So go ahead, Doc.
I was just saying, in most cases in the last 2 weeks, it's been 2 to 3 days. There've been a few cases where it's been 4 or 5, but the vast majority are 2 to 3.
So what is it that the airlines have as a resource over the lay public, where it's safe to fly? If you want to fly, you can come in and get a COVID test, and you'll have the results in 2 hours, but you have to pay like $125 or something like that. What access do they have to a 2-hour result that we don't have?
So there are different kinds of tests. So we do have testing for COVID is a little bit complicated, and a number of different tests have been approved for emergency use. So the gold standard is the PCR test, which goes off to the lab and it's finding small bits of viral RNA. And that's the one that takes a while. It has a lot of reagents, needs a very controlled setting. There are other tests like that are point of care tests that are either molecular tests, so looking at viral genetic material, or antigen tests, so looking at the proteins, and those can be run much faster, with the test taking anywhere from 15 minutes to, I've seen upwards of 30 minutes per test. And so within 2 hours is definitely makes sense as a time frame for those for rapid point of care testing.
Wow, we get paying for baggage, and now we'll be paying for a test. And I have no idea what the cost is, and what kind of money is padded into it. That's not this discussion, but it was interesting when I heard that on the news. And that might have been 2 hours, it might have been an hour, it might have been 15 minutes, I don't remember. But I thought, wait a minute, it takes 2 or 3 days. So I understand. Any other questions, commissioners?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is there anything new with the schools as far as testing or coordinating with our schools that are trying to open up?
We meet with our local public school superintendents every week. So we have a meeting with them tomorrow, but there hasn't been any new changes in this last week regarding any school guidance. In terms of testing, we continue to, like I just reported, increase our community-based testing access and presence in all of our communities throughout Thurston County, so that when schools are open, many schools are planning to do a slow phased return to some hybrid learning in the next few weeks. And we want to make sure that students, teachers, parents, care providers have easy local access to testing. So that's what we've been working on. And also just add, in terms of the rapid testing that Commissioner Hutchings just mentioned, Thurston County Public Health is planning to purchase 10 of those rapid testing machines at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ray. Thank you, Shelley, very much. We're now going to move on to reviewing today's October 6th, 2020's draft agenda. And we'll convene the meeting at 2 o'clock, and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Gary Edwards. And then approval of the meeting agenda and the meeting minutes. And then an opportunity for the public to address the board.
Thank you, commissioners. Yeah, you may receive some public testimony related to the budget conversations. You started yesterday, and some of the information provided to you.
Okay. Agenda item number 2 is county manager's update. Any follow-up?
I don't have any specific follow-up on citizen items. I have been able to I have been able to respond on all the emails that we have received in a couple of topics. So I believe we have responded to those emails that we have received from the Commissioner's office.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 3, which is the consent, and A, B, C, and D. And A is the sheriff's request for sole source purchase from Safe Restraints Incorporated. And as I recall, we were looking to see if that treatment sales tax money could be used for that purpose. And the eventuality, if that was the case, of not doubling it, but getting instead of 8, getting 16 or something like that of these items. Do we have that information yet, Ramiro?
Yeah, I haven't seen any response related to the using the treatment sales tax. But my suggestion for you is for you to consider going ahead with this purchase, and the color of the money will resolve that a little bit later. Certainly, if it's an eligible item under the TST, we'll make sure that is paid from that funding source.
Okay, so then they'd be able to, rather than only getting half of what they need now and the other half next year, get it all now, or sooner than later. Anyway, go ahead with that 3A. Do you have more to talk about on that case, on that?
Yeah, this particular item is related to the Sheriff's Office requesting approval, and as a sole source, related to the sole source, that's a procurement process that we have in place here in the county, and the sole source is vetted by the internal auditor. The internal auditor has determined this is a sole source, and as a result of that, the Sheriff's Office requests for you to approve the sole source as well as the purchase of what the equipment called the RAP, that will be 8, which is a safe restraint system designed to protect individuals and deputies by reducing the possibility of injury and death. Captain Phillips was here last week. He's not able to attend this morning. And you had several questions related to this particular request. But if you have additional questions outside of the TST funding, I'll be more than happy to try to get an answer for you before this afternoon.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser, any questions?
No, Captain Phillips answered my questions last week.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yep, ditto with Commissioner Menser.
Oh, okay. 3B, Public Health and Social Services appointment to the Thurston County Veterans Advisory Board.
Yeah, I believe, Commissioners, you reviewed the application of Mr. Jason Matheny to the Veterans Advisory Board, and this is for your consideration to appoint him to this board from October 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2023.
All right, any questions, Commissioners?
No, sir.
3C, appointment to the Thurston County Veterans Advisory Board for Brandon Frawley.
Yeah, similar to the previous item, for your consideration, Mr. Brandon Frawley has submitted an application to be considered to be part of the Veterans Advisory Board. And this item is for you to confirm that appointment. They will go from October 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2023.
All right, I don't think there's any questions. Doesn't appear to be. 3D is the voucher list, and I trust we've all gone through those. If you've had any questions, we've got them answered. So I'll move on to agenda item number 4, the Auditor's Office, Center for Tech and Civic Life Elections Grant.
Yeah, this is a new item. You didn't receive this, but it's a sense of urgency for you to consider this item. And this is related to a grant the Auditor's Office received from the Center of Technology and Civic Life. And that is associated with, I believe, with the Facebook company. And this is for an award of $159,860. And that will cover the costs associated with the safe administration of the 2020 election. This grant will provide funding necessary to the election center security located in the South Puget Sound Community College by paying for the off-duty sheriff deputy. Also includes the enhanced janitorial services at the South Puget Sound Community College alternative voting site. rain gear and all the different amenities they will need to provide to the individuals who are going to be supporting the 2020 general election. And again, this is you have not seen this item, but it's a sense of urgency for you to authorize the county auditor, Mary Hall, to accept this grant and implement that purchase.
Well, I feel that sense of urgency. Robin, do you have anything to add to this item?
So one of the things about this grant is there is a maintenance of effort clause, and we're trying to get clarity from the grantor about the period that is in effect. And basically the maintenance of effort clause requires that you are not permitted to reduce the county auditor's budget during a specified period. And again, we're trying to find out exactly when that is. And I was just sending a note to Diana to ask if we have clarity yet.
Okay.
So that's an administrative hurdle that we're trying to leap so that we can go forward with this grant.
So and what I understand is to accept this grant, we have to agree not to reduce the auditor's budget. And we don't know what time period this is.
So it is definitely through the end of December, but we don't know when it begins.
Okay.
And that's the hurdle, is if it begins on September 1st or the day we agree to take the grant, then we're fine. But if it begins, the grant period begins sometime in July.
June 15.
Oh, there you go, June 15th. You reduced the county auditor's budget on August 4th.
Yeah.
So we're trying to sort that out. And I agree with the auditor's office that the intent is probably after we agree to take the grant, but we have to have that clarification so that we're not in violation of the grant agreement.
So if we don't find that answer before this afternoon, then we got to remove this.
We should push it. Well, I think that you could authorize the auditor to accept the grant as long as she doesn't take it without that clarification. So that we don't delay, because if we got the clarity tomorrow, she could sign and off we go.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, sir. I'm curious what this group is, this Center for Tech and Civic Life. What is it, a government entity? Is it a
No, it's associated with Facebook.
with Facebook?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a grant from that company.
Is a private, obviously, it's a private industry who has issued, I can't remember how many millions of dollars they made it available across the country related to support the 2020 election. And there was a lot, I can't remember, it was close to 200 million, if I remember the number correct. So just about every single auditor across the country submitted an application to get access to funds on the 2020 general election.
Yeah, and you're satisfied that there's no agenda here other than just helping to clarify good, secure, honest elections?
I don't believe there is any agenda. The only requirement is the timeline in which the board took an action reducing the auditor's budget on August 4th. Although the grant goes from June 15, 2020, but I believe that's covering the cost past that before August 4th. But I think it's going to be mainly related to when those expenditures will occur. And that is just my understanding of the conversation. And I think the cost is going to be beyond after the August 4th when the board took an action. That's the only requirement that I believe is associated with this grant. And I agree with Robin. I don't suggest for you to delay this action because time is of the essence, at least from my point of view. And if for any particular reason just the time in which you took an action to reduce the auditor's budget in August 4th becomes an issue, we just step back and don't take the grant, because we're not going to be signing a document that will bind the county in a difficult situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Question.
Commissioner Massey, yeah, please go ahead. I'm Googling all over this thing.
Good, yeah, so I think we probably all have the same questions, but I guess my question is, following up on Commissioner Edwards, is if they were trying to sneak some kind of weird condition into this grant, who on our end's job is it to find that? Is it the grant manager for the auditor's office? Is it our prosecuting attorney's office? Is it Robin's staff? Like who vets that from our side to make sure? Because I've never seen a grant come in from a organization like this I've never heard of that's not governmental. Just so it's unusual to me, and I guess I have the same concerns as Commissioner Edwards.
So the first responsibility is with the program manager who is applying for the grant. Then you've got the backup, if you will, of the grant manager for the county. That's Joe Wolf. I review grants. We have a little grant committee of various people. Brandon Weber reviews the grants.
Okay.
And then we usually run them past legal. So you've got a whole lot of people looking, and if there's something wonky about it, one of us should pick up on that. And it was through the review, we'd gotten the grant award from the organization to sign, and it was through that review that we found this maintenance of effort clause, which made us pause and make sure that it's all going to be okay before we take the next step. But you've got a whole lot of people looking at these. The primary responsibility, though, is the grant manager, the program manager of the office or department who is applying for the grant.
And it seems strange to me in terms of that maintenance of effort clause. I mean, as Mary presented to us yesterday, her office does so many things, like it does 8 totally unrelated things. And if there was some, and I don't think there would be, but if there was a need to adjust the budget on a completely unrelated thing to elections, that wouldn't really necessarily seem fair that you'd be tying your hands to do that because you accepted a grant as to elections. You're saying the auditor's budget in totality can't be adjusted or messed with, but the auditor does so many different things. It's not just an election shop.
That's true, but the way the award is written, it simply says the county auditor budget may not be reduced. I mean, it's very straightforward, which is why we reached out to the company or the organization and asked for clarification.
So it's somewhat related to a supplanting clause.
Planning,
So
yeah, I get it. They don't want you to.
Yeah.
So
They want to add to what you're already doing now.
right, and that's what it is. Yeah,
What's the end date on that?
December 2020.
That's when you're locked in, so you can't do it.
That's really is just to go through the general election.
But we still don't know if it's the 2% reduction that the auditor got some months ago might be detrimental to this whole thing.
That is exactly what we're looking for.
Okay.
I believe that's the only question that we found that we need to answer. There is no other, I believe, other strings attached or any conditions related to this grant other than the August 4th amendment.
One follow-up on that is kind of following along where Commissioner Menzer is coming from. Usually we at least get a week, to look at this stuff when we review the following week from our regular board meeting, and this being brand new and it's been available since June, whenever, I'm just kind of curious how come it's coming in right now and bang, you got to do it right now. I'm just, those things make me nervous, that's all. I haven't seen any of it, and I don't want to be involved in the minutia of looking through it if we have legal that's able to do all
I don't
that.
think.
So It
So-
has not been available
Yes.
since June. The funding
No.
by the organization is retroactive. The first application date was in early September, and we only just got the grant award late last week. And the reason we're asking you to move on it so quickly is the election is right around the corner, and that is the intent of the grant. So time is of the essence with this one.
I was climbing all over their website, Center for Tech and Civic Life.org, and they have an impressive website. And as I went through the board of directors and the team, then I started going through their story and grants, but now I can't, Safari can't open the page because it can't establish a safe, secure connection. I can't get anywhere into that.
Yeah, I asked
at all.
Commissioner, I asked the county auditor to join the conversation if you have any
Perfect.
questions related to Mary.
Mary, have you been listening? Oh, you're muted. You young lady, you're muted. There we go.
No, I'm sorry, I have not. I've been in a Waco meeting, a board meeting, so my apologies.
Sorry, we're talking
We
about
just don't
the
trust
Center for
Facebook,
Tech
Mary.
and Civic Life, the election grant. We
Okay,
had questions about, well, I guess the first question was the legitimacy of the organization, but then whether we're going to get past that hurdle of budget reduction date.
yes, we reached out to them. This is a Center for Tech and Civic Life. And the money actually came from Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook to the election community. We did the budget adjustment, but that was in September, and we did reach out to them. I think we're going to be fine because we can go back to, I think it's June 1st, for any expenses that we have incurred. So we plan on doing that. What we plan to do with this is we put in generators at our ballot processing center that we're used a security grant for. The security grant has a 4-year spend down. So we're going to apply that, excuse me, to this grant. So we can save that security money for future uses. So, it's not a federal grant, so it's a lot easier to, it's a lot easier to spend, so to speak. But a lot of counties in the state, in fact, almost all the counties in the state received quite a bit of money. I know
Okay.
Pierce County received $500,000.
That was my next question about who else has received. Ty, you have any questions of Mary?
No, I think I covered it. We're just not sure, pardon us for not trusting Facebook, but it was just,
Gary, any
Yeah.
questions of our auditor?
Just about a full disclosure, that's the link. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
now my concern is that if we're able to do retro benefit and we reduced the auditor's budget by 2% in July, I think it's all the more reason maybe to reinstate that 2% to the current expense folks. And then we wouldn't have any question, because if we get penalized for that July reduction, or August, I guess August 4th or whatever it was, that we reduced the budget, then it's kind of a moot point. We don't get any benefit, probably got to pay it back, and interest at 6%, knowing Mr. Zuckerberg.
So, yeah, we think it's guilt money, they feel guilty. But, the one thing I can tell you is I have total and complete confidence in my staff, my grants manager, and my internal auditor, who we have discussed this grant with. So, we will make sure that we are able to spend down all of this money, and we will spend it properly. So,
And the grant, your internal auditor is okay with it then?
yes.
Okay. Any other questions of Mary? Okay, get back to your conference.
Thanks,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Are we gonna keep this on the agenda then, I imagine today, I will hope.
Yes,
for this
keep it
afternoon?
on.
Why, that's why I know I'm asking my seatmates. I'm in favor of staying on.
I'm kind of looking to my legal counsel, Ty.
Well, do we need to, if we don't have the clarification, do we need to make an amendment to then, or will it be adjusted to basically make it conditional upon, the commissioners authorized conditional upon, the language that you've described about needing clarification about eligibility because of the maintenance of effort clause in the board's action on August 4th?
So I would recommend, let me find out if they've heard back yet. Like I said, I sent a note off to Diana. As soon as we find that out, hopefully they have, and we're good to go. But if they haven't, then Romero and I can take a look at to see how the motion needs to read.
I'd be comfortable with that language, but also if I look at the majority of counties in the state have received this grant money, and I know the majority of counties in the state have gone through budget reductions as well. You would think there'd be something on par with what we're looking at that they have been through. So I guess we'll just wait and see. But if we're going to keep it on the agenda, then we got to have an answer or that clause that counts or that covers us conditionally.
Right.
Yeah, I'll work on the language based on what I'm hearing from the board.
Okay.
I'll have it ready for this afternoon, just in case we didn't hear anything from the auditor's office.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good, that was a big one. That takes us to agenda item number 5, Central Services, a bid award for the Family and Juvenile Court camera controls.
This is a proposal for you to award the contract to Upson Incorporated of Linwood, Washington for $239,856.87. And this is to provide Vicon surveillance system to the Thurston County Family and Juvenile Court, excuse me, video system. Their work includes submittals, permits, equipment, devices, the trim termination programming. This is a larger effort associated with all the video security we have implemented in Superior and District Courts. So this is the last step in the process. With an engineering firm is the one who provided the design for both projects. And the way we're going to go through and secure the services of this outfit was through the existing contract the Washington Learning Source has. So we're piggyback on that contract, and that is why you have not seen this particular item to go out to bid. And under the procurement policy allows for us to piggyback on any state contracts that we may have. And again, for your considerations, for you to award the contract to OPSCO Incorporated for $239,856.97. And that includes all the sales tax and a 10% contingency.
Okay, any questions, commissioners, on this item?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
What fund is that coming out of, and has it been budgeted well ahead of time to cover this?
It is already budgeted and is as part of the IT bill reserves.
So is it like general fund money? Is that what's happening here?
Well, it's the ITIP, which is a portion of the general fund. It's part of the indirect costs that you approve. So the general fund contributes to that fund as well.
And I guess my next question is, how come we didn't talk about it last week?
Because you approved this last year.
Okay.
That's part of the 2020 budget.
Go ahead, Robin.
Okay.
You've also recently had a review of all capital projects, that this was part of the list, and it was part of the security conversation, because the work that's being done is in part security for the FJC.
Okay, enough said, Robin. I'm good. That's all I need to hear. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, nothing. Go ahead, Ty.
Miro, when you were laying that out, you made reference to both projects, and I wasn't sure what you were referring to. You said the engineer had
The engineer,
Same engineer had
yeah,
designed both projects.
the two projects, you may recall that we just went through the updating the video systems here in Superior and District Courts. And I believe you received some feedback from Superior Court as to how that project has gone. Finally, we got to the process of having implemented the phase 3 of that. Now, this is the next leg, is the same project, but on juvenile court. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay,
I didn't know that was connected
Actually-
because a lot of
Well,
times district courts
It's a phased
and juvenile
approach.
court are on completely different systems.
This is actually a different project. It's not connected to the video courts. These are the cameras that are part of the security of the FJC. It's the security system.
I'm sorry, Commissioners, if I may. The idea is a joint backbone between correction and court side of FJC. We are using the backbone of system to lower the cost, but those are two systems running off same IT base.
is this Mr. Kowalewski?
Yes.
Oh, okay, our capital project manager, number 2. Thank you. Okay, other questions, clarifying questions?
No, sir.
No, nothing, Ty? Okay. Thank you, Marius. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin. Agenda item number 6A is amendment number 16 and 17 to the State Department of Health.
Yeah,
Consolidated project.
Commissioner, this item you did not have the chance to review last week. And this is a new item, and again, it's one of those timely actions that you may consider. And this is an amendment to the consolidated contract, also known as, we know, the CON-CON. As you may recall, the public health was given an additional CRF funding through the State Department of Health to do specific functions within the response of the emergency. You had a large conversation on September 11th, as well as a follow-up last week, I believe, as to how that funding could be distributed in coordination with the initial CRF funding the county received. This contract is to take and bring the money in. So it does, because it's going through the consolidated contract again, and for your consideration is to extend the amount that we currently have in the contract. And this is going through January, obviously, the contract that we currently have is from January 1st, 2018, because that's how all the funding that comes from the Department of Health to public health is through this contract. And we also asked to go through December 31st, 2020. And again, the gist of that is to increase the amount to take the money that has been allocated to the coronavirus relief fund to public health. And Shelley's here to answer any questions.
Any questions of Shelley on the CON-CON? Nope. Okay, good.
These numbers all check out, Shelley, for on your end?
Yes, sir.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Next is 6B, amendment for rent and utility assistance through the CAC.
Yeah, this is a contract, amendment to the existing contract with the Community Action Council, and this is related to a couple of items in here related to the previous decisions the board made. This contract is for $1.6 million, which includes $1.4 million of rental assistance the commissioners decided to allocate to the Community Action Council. In addition to the $1.4 million for rental assistance, you include an additional $200,000 total for utility subsidies to help citizens in the county as well. So since the Community Action Council is going to be managing those two efforts, this is the $1.6 million amendment to that contract. As you may recall, also the Community Action Council is managing the the commerce grant that we receive for rental assistance, which is about $3.3 million. And that has on specific requirements, but the process is going to be the same on the additional $1.4 million that you allocated for rental assistance. That isn't just what this contract does. And again, it's two elements on this, the $1.4 million for rental assistance and the $200,000 total for utility subsidies for citizens in the county. And Tom is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for joining us, Tom. Appreciate it. Any questions for Tom on this?
Is this in direct, this is kind of in response, or at least in part, to the Public Utilities District folks writing us that letter, right?
Yeah, that is correct. You had a conversation last week where the Thurston County Public Utility District asked for kind of relief, coronavirus relief fund direct allocation. Unfortunately, that cannot be, that cannot happen since that can be considered replacement of lost revenue. And that is one of the items in which the CRA funding is not, that's not an eligible item. As a result of that, you increase the utility subsidy through the Community Action Council to achieve the same objective, and it will be a direct benefit to the citizens affected by the emergency.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ty.
You're missing a zero on the number there.
I'm sorry.
Didn't catch that.
Oh, yes, thank you.
1.6.
Yeah, we'll fix that. Thank you.
Oh, my
Any other
apologies.
questions? Okay, and Tom, thank you for the work you're doing in the instant regarding the RHC as well. Thank you.
And you heard from Kelly earlier today, the DOT program is extremely effective since they have already served close to 329 households. They may be benefiting from the overall program through the Community Action Council related to rental assistance. So they continue to be effective. Again, I believe you heard that they already have spent over $1 million from the initial commerce grant. And I believe there is a lot of need, as you can expect. So this is going to be a well added benefit to the citizens who are in need of rental assistance.
Yeah, that's heartwarming. All right, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7. 7A, Public Works, the vacation in the plat of Burbank Acre tracts.
You did review this item, Commissioners, last week. So this is not a new item. And as a matter of background, back in January 14, 2020, a public hearing was held related to this potential vacation for various portions of an open right-of-way on the plat of Burbank Acres tract. This plat dedicated dedicated right-of-way back in July 2nd, 1912. Since it has not been open, and the board approved this vacation contingent to having all the financial aspects being taken care of. I believe that has been achieved, and this is the last step in the process where the commissioners affirm the vacation process of this tract. Susan is here to answer any questions about this item.
Any questions, gentlemen, of Craig?
I guess the only thing I'd mention is this is kind of a continuation of a process that's 108 years old, and now we're concluding it. Is that it?
And not necessarily. It's a 100-year-old process. And back in 1912, this plat reserved right-of-way for the county to use. Over that period of time, the county has not used it, so we have not opened it. And the way how we dispose right-of-way, the underlying fee owners can request the county to vacate that property if it's not for public use. So the process is where we determine that in fact this portion of county right-of-way has not been open to the public. There is no longer a need. So and the process is a lot shorter than the last 100 years. It's only the last, I believe, 6 months in which we have processed this request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item number 8, which is the wrapping up of the meeting with our calendars and our reporting back on our committees and such. But then when you thought you've had enough government, we have a public hearing at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And this is regarding the closure of a portion of 188th Avenue Southwest. So that'll be right about 3 o'clock or thereafter.
Yeah, yes, Commissioners, you will receive public testimony related to the potential closure of 188 Avenue Southwest. That is in association to the larger strategy the Department of Transportation is planning to do along Highway 12. Just to briefly walk you through, the Department of Transportation had plans to build 2 runabouts along Highway 12, one on Anderson Road and one on Moon Road. And those are the ones who serve directly to the casino of the Chehalis Tribe in the Rochester area. It was a request by the chair of the tribal chair at that time, a couple of years ago, for you to consider to close the 188 only to access local for local access. As a result, the need to construct a runabout on Moon Road and Highway 12 will no longer be needed. The board agree on that, send a letter in response, and this is the last step in the process where you consider to closing 188. You heard from staff that there is going to be a somewhat of a gate at the end of this road where emergency vehicles will be able to access through traffic if needed. The improvements to close this road will be paid by Washington State Department of Transportation. And I believe there's a couple of items related to that next week, and I will walk you through when we get to the agenda for next week. That is the purpose of the public hearing. And Matt Enselman is here to answer any questions. He will give a staff report this afternoon.
Right. Any questions from Matt?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Matt, for joining in.
Thank you.
That ends this afternoon's board meeting. Next, we're going to be moving into next Tuesday's board meeting and the Board of Health meeting, and then more administrivia, sundry things to get through on this agenda for this morning. So we're going to go ahead. It's 10. Oh, it says 6 minutes after 10. Let's take a 15-minute break, please. Let's come back at 10:20. How's that? About 12 minutes. 10:20. We'll be recessed. That's it. Thank you. 10:20. We're continuing on with the agenda setting work session for Tuesday, October 6, 2020. We're now moving into or onto the agenda for next Tuesday, October 13th, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Commissioner Menzer. Approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes, and then an opportunity for the public to address the board. A bit early for that, I would think. County manager's update. And then consent item A, it says A through C, but I only see A on, I only see C on there. The voucher list. So that will change,
Yes, sir.
3A.
We will add the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Then
I'm catching up with you.
That's
Sorry.
fine, I'm sorry. I've had 2 coffees now today.
Yeah, so it will be a 3A. Thank you.
Agenda item number 4 is Superior Court. Is the 2021 DUI drug court treatment services.
Yeah, Commissioners, you remember you reviewed this item a couple of weeks ago, and this is related to proposed contract to provide DUI drug court treatment services. And the vendor was Pierce County Alliance, and the cost is for $178,271. Their contract lapsed on June 30th, 2020. So I asked to give us some perspective as to how the procurement process was. Drug court engaged Brandon Weber, our internal auditor, and determined that perhaps this is sole source. As a result of this, the drug court and Superior Court is asking the board to waive their procurement requirements and allocate and award the contract to Pierce County Alliance for $178,271. This has a combination of using the Criminal Justice Treatment Account, CJTA, and I believe the board was engaged in some of the allocations related to this particular funding source that comes from the state. So my recommendation is for you to go ahead and keep this item for your agenda next week. If you have any questions?
Okay, any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Nope, nor do I. All right, thank you. Take care of that one. Agenda item number 5 is CPED. Riparian Restoration Program.
Yes, in 2018, Thurston County was awarded the National Estuary Program, the NEP. It's and a grant for $305,000. In June of this year, the county was informed that it's going to be receiving an additional award money. There's $247,500 and also an extension of the existing contract. So this particular item is for you to consider increasing the term of the contract that we have with the Department of Ecology from March 20, 2021 to December 2022, and increase the award by $247,500 for a total of $552,500. Some of the main objectives of this particular grant is to provide information to landowners and motivate voluntary restoration of riparian areas on private land. And also will fund some riparian restoration pilot projects. This will mitigate impacts from stormwater, non-point resource of pollution, and protect and restore the habitat. That is the main objective of this particular grant. And I believe Jennifer Davis is here to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, our staff, Amber Stonick, is here as well. She's the grant administrator.
Thank you for joining us. My commissioners, do you have any questions for Jennifer or Amber?
I don't think so. Sounds like county manager laid it out pretty good, that, this is to benefit water quality, it looks like, and habitat.
Good, all right. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks, Amber. 5B, setting a public hearing for development code docket 821.
This is a follow-up to the briefing that we had with the board on September 23rd, 2020, related to the proposal of rural accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. As a matter of background, the board approved this document back in 2019 and confirmed on the 2020-2021, the official docket that was approved in April 2020, which put this as a number 3 priority on the docket. Staff has been working with the Planning Commission, and they have close to 4 work sessions with the Planning Commission from May 2020 through August 2020. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 5th, and they provided recommendations to the board, which staff presented to you on September 23rd, 2020. Again, CEPA determination of no significance has been issued on September 8, 2020, and the next step before the board can consider taking a final action on the proposal is for you to hold a public hearing. And this item is set the public hearing for November 10, 2023 in the afternoon in this room. And Jennifer is here to answer any questions.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for Jennifer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I don't know if this is a process question, but a gentleman, Mr. Tibetan, contacted this office in reference to the amount, the percentage of the amount of the ADU could be. And it appears with the information that he gave is that we're penalizing citizens that are going to attempt to create a lesser carbon footprint, if you will. And that is by, so somebody wants to get by with a smaller house, we're getting away from having larger homes.
Excuse me, Commissioner, do you have a microphone that you can use?
Not coming through, huh?
Not well enough.
Well, not well enough because I didn't have it turned on. How's that? Okay. Anyway, what I'm wondering about this process, staff made a recommendation that it ought to be 40%. You ought to be allowed 40% of the existing house, I think, as part of your ADU. And it's the way Mr. Tibetan explained this was we were penalizing individuals for building smaller homes to start with, because then if there was to be an ADU built for a family member at some, although the family member is not a requirement, it doesn't sound like, but still in his case, he's referring to a family member situation, that we'd be penalizing the person that wants to take the initiative to have a lower carbon footprint by building a smaller home. We're penalizing them from the ability to have a ADU that would be more livable. And I think what he was referring to is, why did we suggest 40% instead of 50%? And I'm wondering, at what time do we make the adjustment, or do we as commissioners have a discussion to make that adjustment prior to the public hearing? Is it now, or is it later?
Process?
Go ahead. Okay, I'm just looking for process.
Process. My recommendation is for you not to make any changes before the prior to the public hearing. That is the purpose of the public hearing, is for you to receive public testimony. And Mr. Tibetan has already provided some testimony. We'll take that and we'll bring that to you, to your attention, and see and weigh in all the public testimony you might receive on this. So after the public hearing, then we'll organize another briefing where you will review all the public comments, including Mr. Tibetan. And at that point, you determine how you'd like to proceed on the ultimate, on the final action.
Okay, so that 40% that's in the original paperwork that's been proposed by staff, that's just a suggestion that we're not locked into.
No, because you have not taken a final action.
Yeah, okay, good. No, that's all I wanted to know. He was asked in the process, and I thought I'd ask for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that's the Planning Commission recommendation based on all of the information and options provided by staff, and that size limits are there to basically address impacts to rural character. But Romero's 100% right. The board will have discretion post-public hearing to consider all the public comment and the different scenarios and options that the public may bring forth, and we can have a follow-up work session to dig through those and analyze those. And then you can land on where you want to land.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ty.
Along those same lines, I got input from a citizen, and I don't know if it landed in the formal comment, but if not, I'll try to forward it. But if you could just add it to your list of issues to address, suggesting that the outbuilding conversion policy and related to growth management and the density limits, suggesting that there would be a GMA violation if we didn't incorporate that. So I just want that addressed, and just so I can be confident about that when we finally get to digging into the public comment.
No problem. Thanks for that note. And I'm sure that will come in also as formal public comment, but staff will be sure to address that issue when we have our follow-up work session with you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item number 6, emergency services, EMS contracts for paramedical services.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. For your consideration is to renew the contract for advanced life support, also known as ALS. And this is a contract renewal with the Lacey Fire Department number 3, Olympia Fire Department, Tumwater Fire Department, which the current contract expires at the end of this year, December 31st, 2020. There has been already some negotiations has been happening. They have already got to the point in which this contract is amicable for both parties, all the parties involved. And I believe the EMS Council, the prosecuting attorneys, as well as the internal auditor, have already looked at the terms of this contract and is providing recommendations for the board to approve. A high-level elements of this new contract. There's a 2-year contract that will begin in January 1st, 2021. It provides funding for 70 paramedics in Thurston County, along with medical services officers. Assist with paramedic shortages that are nationwide. That includes cost reimbursement for internal county EMT, reduction of paramedics over time with a cap of 8 to 6%. Adds the contract an additional $500,000. That goes from $8,749,448 to $9,249,000. All that is covered by Medic One. And again, this is a renewal of the contract that elapses at the end of this year. And Ben Miller-Todd is here and is standing for Kurt Harding. If you have any questions related to this item.
Okay, any questions?
I do not.
Nope. Ty, nothing? Nope.
Nope.
Nor do I. Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Agenda item 7A, Public Works. We have the public hearing today for the road closure, partial road closure of 188th Avenue. 7A is the resolution.
So 7A and 7B are related to each other, Commissioner. So depending on the public testimony you might receive this afternoon during the public hearing, these items are for you to, the 7A is to take a formal action via resolution to close the road, 188 Avenue Southwest. And item 7B is for you to authorize the Department of Public Works to get into a new local agreement with the State Department of Transportation to receive $435,000 from state funding to go ahead and do the improvements of closing the road. So those are two related items. And again, depending on the public testimony you might receive this afternoon, the board may or may not like to keep those items, but it's just in case you do not receive any public testimony this afternoon.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners, on these two items?
No, sir.
No?
No.
Okay. Good, then we'll wrap up that meeting and we'll turn into the Board of Health. And I'm gonna turn this over now to the Chair of the Board of Health, Commissioner Menzer.
Thank you. And looks like we've got Shelley Slaughter, Art, Chris, Hawkins. Anyone else, Shelley, we've got from Public Health?
No, that's it, sir.
Okay, so the agenda for Tuesday, October 13th, calling meeting to order at 3:30. And we start with, after approval of agenda and consideration of meeting minutes and work session notes, we start with a presentation. And this is regarding recognition of Medical Reserve Corps and their efforts supporting the COVID-19 pandemic response.
Yes, sir. Jennifer Dixon is on the line to answer any questions you have about this item from our Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program. This presentation will include 3 guests that are Medical Reserve Corps members to share what their experiences have been supporting our department on COVID-19 response. There's been over 90 Medical Reserve Corps members that have helped us during this response, and we just want to give special recognition to all the volunteers in our community and specifically the Medical Reserve Corps members who have helped us to control COVID-19 during this response. We could not have done it without them. We're continuing to rely every day on our amazing Medical Reserve Corps members. And you gave a special recognition at the Board of County Commissioners to our public health staff working on response, but we really want to appreciate our Medical Reserve Corps members.
I do have a question
on that?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Edwards.
I've been over to the health department when the Medical Reserve Corps has been doing other things prior to this whole COVID situation. And now it's more important than ever that they continue to help us through this problem. So are we going to do anything with the individuals that, I don't know if you want to pick out all of them or a few that have been exceptional, or we're going to give them some certificate of appreciation? We ought to give them something. They're putting a lot of time and effort into this. I don't know if all of them are doing the same or not, but I'd leave that up to you to decide. But is there something more that we could do for them other than just a public thank you? I mean, I recognize that that's worth doing, but is there maybe something more we could do? That'd be to Shelley, possibly.
Yes, we would love to do more. Most certainly, certificates of appreciation are in order. In non-COVID times, we would gather and have our annual recognition event. I don't know that we'll be able to do that this upcoming year, but most certainly we would love to do as much as we can to honor and appreciate our Medical Reserve Corps members and are thinking of ways in which we can give them some tangible tokens of our appreciation as well. Jennifer, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
I do have, so we do have something in the works that Angel, who's our temporary employee helping with volunteer coordination, she's working on. I had applied for a grant through the NACHO, and they gave us some money to help support Medical Reserve Corps. So through that, we're purchasing some little gift bags and things. Volunteer appreciation was part of what that grant money could be spent on. So we are in the works of doing that for the current people who have been helping with our COVID-19 response. It's a little bag. I think she has a tumbler that she put the MRC logo on, and so just a little gift bag to say thank you. I think, at a future date, kind of when we're hopefully wrapping up some of this COVID-19 stuff and ramping down, it would probably be good when it's safe to bring everybody together, kind of do a big appreciation and have everybody in person if we're able. But we'll definitely keep thinking of some ideas and things that we can do to continually recognize our volunteers, because they are helping a lot.
Thank you.
Hutch, anything?
No, just very, very appreciative.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner Edwards covered my issues, so I think we're good to go on that. Item 3,
COVID.
opportunity to the public to address Board of Health. We don't know what's coming there, I assume,
I'm not aware of anyone.
but we'll find out. Okay, item 4 is an emergency ordinance continuing selected sections of emergency ordinance H4 2020 regarding provisions of the sanitary code related to COVID-19. And we've got Art Starry here. What's this all about?
Yeah, good morning. And again, I'm Art Starry with the Environmental Health Division of the County Health Department. And this continues an emergency ordinance or several provisions of an emergency ordinance that the Board of Health adopted on April 30th. And you may recall that shortly after the whole COVID pandemic, the impacts of it became apparent. We brought before you an ordinance that basically extended timelines and suspended certain provisions of our sanitary code that would help folks who were in the process of going through permits or who had permitted facilities to provide some relief for them because of the pandemic. And so that ordinance expired a couple of days ago, at least many provisions of it. And so what we're doing is bringing back a new emergency ordinance that will continue many of the things that that you authorized in April. And they're primarily focused on folks who have things like septic system permits and things that would normally expire and automatically extend some of those. It provides some relief to people who, some of our licensed professionals who have continuing education requirements that would normally have to be documented, and training that would need to take place by the end of the year. It basically suspends that for a year. And it does some other things that, again, we believe are appropriate and seemed to have been appreciated by the public with the initial ordinance. And so this is an emergency ordinance, so it doesn't require a normal hearing and things. This is something you can do, and I'd be happy to go through it in more detail if you'd like, but it continues most of the things from ordinance H4 2020. There's a few things that aren't continued. For instance, there was something in the previous one that extended renewal dates for swimming pools. Well, our temporary swimming pools and things, that's no longer a factor because they will have closed by now, so there's not a need to continue those things. But the most pertinent things and the things that are still appropriate, we've tried to continue those.
Questions for Art on this item?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Would it also cover any, you said that it's lapsed, I guess, so this couple of weeks in which people would not have that coverage, would it kind of be a retro thing to cover back to when it did lapse, so that we?
Yes, it does. Commissioner Edwards, yes, it does that. Our prosecutor who worked with us on this, Jane Futterman, was careful to put language in that basically continues that those, I guess I'll say, privileges, even though there's going to be a small lapse in time when the one ordinance expired and the next one comes in. But this basically goes back to March 12, 2020, and any of those things that were expiring or were due to be renewed within the time frame between then and the March 31st, 2021, they'll still have those benefits and privileges.
Thank you.
So I want to thank Jane Futterman. She put this together again pretty quickly, and she's smart enough to recognize those sorts of things.
Good.
A draft, if the ordinance is in our packets, and I haven't had a chance to go through it yet, but I will, and just give the heads up to the board that you can take a look at exactly what's in there if you hang on to your packet.
And there's also
yeah.
There's also a highlight section that I put together that tries to make it a little bit clearer what we're doing, and it's follows the ordinance. So it's similar to one I did before, except without the mistakes.
Okay. Perfect. That's helpful. Okay, Hutch, anything on that? Okay, good on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Art. Item 5, update on homelessness public health crisis. We've got Keely and Tom teed up for that. Shelley, why don't you frame this issue?
Sure. This item was added upon your recommendation, Commissioner Menzer. It has been 2 years since the Board of Health declared homelessness a public health crisis. You passed Resolution H2 2018 in June of 2018. And Keely, our homeless response coordinator, and Tom Webster, our manager of the Office of Homelessness and Affordable Housing at our department, will provide an update on where we are at in terms of homelessness as a public health crisis. The Board of County Commissioners saw the data from our last year's point in time count. That next point in time count is quickly approaching. There's many things that Thurston County has done that were addressed in that resolution to make progress on this issue, and they will report both the successes and the challenges that still face us for this crisis.
Questions for this item?
No, sir.
Nope, I always look forward to updates from Keely.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. I don't have any either. The board members will report on health-related activities. The health officer, Dr. Abdulmalik, will give a report on whatever COVID-19 or anything else that she feels appropriate. And then Shelley will give a director's report. Anything about that, Shelley, that we need to? Good to go. Okay, and then we will adjourn, but then we have a public hearing, Board of Health public hearing following at 5 p.m. And it is related to Ordinance H08-2020, adopting new Article 8 of Sanitary Code. So Shelley, why don't you frame this one?
I believe Chris Hawkins has just popped on video to cover this item.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, commissioners. Hope you can hear me. Chris Hawkins here, program manager in education and prevention for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. This is an item that you set a hearing about last month, and it is concerning a smoking and vaping in public places of employment, and certain youth-oriented outdoor public places policy for Thurston County that has been developed and proposed to you. This is gathering public comment about that ordinance. We're excited to have this under your consideration, and it will make a big difference for our community's health because smoking and vaping have such a big negative impact on our community's health, and particularly sets a norm for making sure that we're doing as much as we can to prevent youth initiation on substance use. So there's also a SEPA, State Environmental Policy Act review process that is underway right now, and a determination of non-significant impact has been issued about that. That's open for public comment concurrent with this comment period on leading up to your public hearing on October 13th. So we recommend that you move to close the hearing after you've heard from the public, and then at some later point schedule your decision about the ordinance.
Questions for Chris?
No, sir.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. This is going to have a good impact on the public regarding smoking and vaping. And I got a really good laugh over the weekend. Because for the first time I've noticed, my wife and I were watching a movie, and it always tells you right up front the warning: adult content, language, violence, and then smoking. They actually put smoking as a warning that there's smoking in this movie. And I just got a good laugh out of that. I've never seen that before. Didn't know there was a group of people advocating for that. I think it's pretty funny.
Very positive, and hopefully in the future it will include the mention of vaping.
Yeah, there you go. So I have no other questions. That's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't either. And again, quite a few materials are in the packet for commissioners to take a look at. So hang on to that. Have questions? And there's slides in there. Is that going to be presented at the public hearing prior to to preview? Okay, very good. Well, that's it for the Board of Health. Thank you, Art, Chris, and Shelley.
Thank you.
Turn it back to the chair.
So now we're returning to our original agenda for today, and that is proclamations and awards. And so I'm going to assume Amy Davis is in the clerk of the board's in the room.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got it, Amy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. There are no proclamations for review today. However, there are 3 applications in your packet for review. The first 2 are, again, from Jason Matheny and Brandon Frawley for the Veterans Advisory Board. And these appointments are included on the agenda for this afternoon. The third application was received from Eileen McKenzie Sullivan for the citizen position on the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging. She resides in District 1 and is the former Executive Director of Senior Services of South Sound. Her application is included for your review. If there are any questions, I can take those. And if there are no questions, I'd like to provide a brief update on a project going on related to advisory boards and commissions.
Okay, any questions of Amy on the advisory boards?
No, sir.
I support both for the Veterans Advisory Board, and I fully support Eileen McKenzie Sullivan for the Area Agency on Aging as well. Will that be in our packet for next week then?
Yes.
In the agenda for next week? Okay. So go ahead with your update, Amy.
So I am looking into and have found a new meeting management system. This platform also includes a portal/dashboard tool for boards and commissions management. And this will allow our staff members of these boards and commissions to have one place to keep rosters, member information, meeting information, and would allow for automatic updating of rosters, vacancies, online applications, and any other pertinent information that they would like to post. This system will provide accurate information and transparency in a timely manner and in just one place for our citizen boards and commissions. So for the process of this project, I am currently collaborating with some staff members of these boards and commissions and the clerks of Board of Health and Transportation Benefit District. And I plan to take this item to the ITC subcommittee meeting at the end of this month for further approval and next steps. So this is something I'm very excited about and will keep you posted.
Very good and timely. Questions regarding the project?
No.
Nope. All right. Thank you, Amy, for that. A new management system. Good. PIO check-in. I haven't seen Megan, so is it Brian today? Dominique?
Yes, Brian here.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Manager. Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the board. Just have a few updates. First is on the 2020 census. So there's been some confusion about the 2020 census the last couple weeks. But the end date for data collection is now October 31st. So if anyone hasn't completed the 2020 census yet, they can go to my2020census.gov and complete it through October 31st. And as of right now, as of September 30th, the count in Thurston County was at 75.30%, which was a 10.6% increase from 2010 participation. So still some people out there that need to take it. And to help with that, there are census workers out in the field going out and helping people complete it. And then for Flood Awareness Week, I'm working with emergency management and some staff from CPED on getting information out to the community. This includes producing a public service announcement with TC Media, a news release, and a one-week social media campaign to share information about how to obtain flood insurance, the importance of keeping storm drains clear of debris, especially in the fall and winter, and lots of other information. The 2020 flood bulletin that they produce every year over in emergency management will also be released. And finally, our weekly newsletter, the Friday 5, continues to perform well. Right now, we're averaging about 20 new subscribers each month. So we're excited about that, and we look forward to continuing to see it growing. Pending any questions, that concludes my brief. Excuse me.
28 additional every month. That's good. Commissioner Mensler, anything for anything for Brian?
Brian, on the census, it always kind of puzzles me how they can give this precise number. If the whole point is to count the people that are there, then how do they know? How do they give this precise number of people that have responded? How do you calculate that when the whole point is you don't know how many total people you have? But my question for you is this 75% response rate, what is, it might have been Megan last week or somewhere in the last week, I saw a map where they were showing the different regions of Washington and then it was like 99.8 and 98 point whatever. And I couldn't figure out what that number meant versus the response rate. Is it, that's how many total people they think they're going to be able to have counted? Or do you know what I'm talking about?
Not exactly.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. It's just there were statistics presented about the census, and I can't remember which meeting I was at where I saw it, but there were numbers that I just couldn't understand the difference in what they represented exactly. But I'll figure that out myself. Thank you.
I would venture to say that it's you're probably looking at state count versus like local count. So they do like basically they just like do a median of how many people they're able to count across the states. So the state numbers tend to be a little bit higher than when you dig down locally into the numbers. At least that's from what I've seen, but I can't say that's factual.
Commissioner Edwards, anything for Brian?
No, sir.
Hey, Brian, regarding the census is mailed to people's homes. You can get online and fill it out, and they have census workers out in the field. And I forgot what the information was that we talked about months ago. Are census workers going out and hitting the homeless and counting them as well or not?
Yes, Commissioner, that's one of the operations the census takes on is the homeless count. And I believe that was done at the end of September. I can't remember the exact dates.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. Thank you, Brian, very much. All right, that takes us to agenda item number 9, legislative update, the Thurston County 2021 legislative agenda discussion.
Thank you.
Got a packet.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Attached to your packet this morning is a 2021 legislative priorities. It's labeled as draft. So let me walk you through the items that we're proposing for you to consider. First is they provide new revenue as well as a fiscal regulatory flexibility. That has been an item that has been in our agenda for the last couple of years, where Thurston County requests the state provide flexibility of existing funding by removing restrictions and mandates placed on available county funds. This is not new revenue, it's just provide flexibility to existing revenues the county receives. Thurston County is asking specifically of removing non-supplanting language in the criminal justice regular levy and making the veterans assistance levy and the developmental disability and mental health levy separate from the property tax outside of the county general levy. What it does, in this particular item, as you may recall, this could probably increase the general fund revenue. But at that time, I believe it was close to $1.9 million if this is an option. There has been a move afoot this year through legislation. Have been working with Deborah Mangia, have been tracking a couple of proposed bills. And perhaps there might be an opportunity to go through with a version of this particular proposal in the 2021 legislative session. One bill that I saw, a proposal that perhaps may provide some flexibility, it has a deadline, meaning for the next couple of years. Anyway, this is an item for your consideration. Any questions on this one? And I'm going to item by item, and obviously you have the opportunity to provide your own perspective, and this is just a proposal from staff.
Commissioners, anything?
You want to discuss item by item or go through the whole list first?
However you like to approach this.
Let's just do item by item. Okay. So nothing on this one then? Okay, go ahead.
So the beginning of this is really broad, like completely general, and then at the end it's very specific. And I get the specific part because sounds like there's some specific bills that relate to this, that and it's a specific ask. So I like that, I guess. But if we're going to include that in this really, if we're going to include that very specific piece underneath this very broad umbrella, I might tweak the language of the broad umbrella part because, provide new revenue. Leading with that sounds like we're just asking for more money, and it seems like a lot of the times what we're really asking for, it's not so much that we want the state to give us money; it's that we want the state to stop prohibiting us from raising our own money. I mean, they put handcuffs on us. They've tied our hands, and removing those handcuffs is something they could do without giving us a dime. So I guess I might suggest tweaking the first half of that paragraph, and then or removing it if we just want to stick to the very specific. If we just want to shoot small, then stick to the specific ask. But if we want to make it broader, then I could suggest some revisions to the first half of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let me go through that language again and see how we can probably change that to address your concerns. Good point.
That's an excellent point, because the reader, as soon as you read provide new revenue, shut off. They'll just stop.
Give me money.
Give me money, yeah. Anything on that, Gary?
No, sounds good to me.
Okay. Go ahead, Romero.
So the next item is the maintain judicial impact fee funding. As you may recall, last year the county was extremely successful in making sure that the court impact fees was going to be part of the general budget allocation by the state. And the reason as to why we have this item in here, as you're tracking, perhaps the legislature next year is going to be looking for budget cuts to address the emergency and the lack of revenue. And we want to make sure that this continues to be part of the radar. And they're not going to be taking what they call the extra stuff and start eliminating that. That's the reason why this item is still there, just to make sure they continue to support this effort.
Any feedback on that one? Impact fees?
Sounds good.
Okay. Go ahead.
The other items are a little more broad in perspective. And you had some conversations related to the CPACER, and we're going to be bringing this item a little more in detail in the next couple of weeks as to what this funding does, this program does, and this is related to energy and resilience for commercial properties assessed in the county. And the reason why we have this item is because they on this year's budget, they allocated some money to the Department of Commerce to get this program going through issuing grants to those who are qualified under this program after the county takes some actions. Well, the governor, when leading to the emergency of the pandemic, he struck some of those items out of the budget. And as a result, this is an item where we're going to be asking the legislature to restore that grant program in the Department of Commerce, so at least we can move forward on this particular program, which is the CPACER was passed in the legislature in 2020, as you may recall.
So no work has been done on this at this point, on this program?
No work, because one of the first steps is you as a legislative authority needs to establish the program by legislative action.
Right.
And we're going to be bringing back this item because at some point we weren't sure as to how the ordinance should be put together. I believe we have enough information at this point that we'll bring this item back for further conversation, if that's what the board wants to do.
Do you know, Romero, what the governor allocated to this program and then took it back? Or did he not even allocate money?
I don't remember the amount. Commissioner, but at least it was a grand opportunity to get this program off the ground.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary, any questions?
Nope.
Ty?
No.
Okay. Without having a deep conversation about all the other different legislative priorities that we may have, I'm just wondering if that is restoring CPACER funding is one that we would consider paramount or not. And you've had discussion with Deborah Munguia about this? This is
Yeah, and also this is included on the shared legislative agenda across the county.
okay.
So, and again, this is a proposal. If the board doesn't feel this is something you'd like to support,
And I'm not suggesting it's not
you're in
something
the
we'd want
position to
support.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. But it never got off the ground, it didn't sound like, because of the pandemic. I understand that. It just popped into my head. I'm not saying it's not supportable. No, I'm saying I'm not willing to support it. Just a question. Okay, culvert fish passage.
There's another item that has been on the legislative agenda, as you're well tracked, and the board, you have been extremely proactive in the last couple of years to put some $2 million a year to start eliminating some of the fish barriers on the culverts that we have in the county. This particular item is to ensure that at least we have a larger coordination with the state, because the state has a core mandate. They need to eliminate some of the fish barrier passage obstructions in the state highway system. But seems to be that there is a very narrow approach as to how they do this. And I think it may present some opportunities as to how additional funding and coordination with local governments to have a more effective approach to open fish habitat by coordinating the efforts. And that's really the item related to this proposal.
Okay. Anything on that, commissioners? Nope. All right. Climate change.
And also this item is a carryover from last year, but I think is even more pressing at this point since the climate mitigation plan is going to be coming for your consideration for approval here in the next couple of months. So this item is to support legislative actions addressing climate change and strategies. And how has worked in the past? As you may recall, I bring those specific bills they related to this item, and you have a discussion whether you'd like to support individual bills or not. But again, as an umbrella, I believe this is something the board may consider supporting.
I know the Wasatch looked at indigent defense as well and paying for justice for all for public defense. And I understand the strategy of not bombarding and keep it a reasonable list, but, and there's no but. However, I see the CPACERs, clean energy and resilience, and addressing climate change. And I would imagine Wasatch on that as well. This is now we're getting into the legislature, and that's very interesting, dynamic, strategic stuff. If you have an appetite for that, which many do, it's wonderful, good stuff. Anyway, questions on the climate change strategies?
No, sir.
No?
And again, commissioners, if this is a draft, we'll revise the language on the first item. But if you have anything else that you may like to include, please let me know so I can start working on the language. Ideally, it will be to have a one-pager as we have in the past, but certainly we can accommodate any additional items that you may think is appropriate.
Very good. Good work, Romero. Thank you. Next, public hearing decisions pending?
None at this point.
All right. And now we're getting into the commissioner items. 4H, new representative and an introduction.
Yes, I have Josh Cummins as well as Stephen Bramwell. And who's going to take the lead on this, Josh or Stephen?
So Stephen will take the lead, but I just wanted to make sure that we had Emily also. Here she
yes,
is.
we have Emily here.
No, we don't. Yeah, we do. No, we don't. Yes, we do.
All right, Stephen, go for it.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, commissioners, for carving out some time, and county manager for carving out some time for me to introduce Emily Colleen. I'll just say a word or two and then let Emily introduce herself as well. But as you know, I think Diana Ullery left the program, retired at the end of last year, and she was in the position of the program lead, excuse me, with the county from 2014 to 2019, so a pretty good tenure. The 4-H program has about 40 clubs and 400 youth members. And each year we have about 15,000 hours contributed from volunteers. So very active. We have to thank Chris Shackley and Melody Slack for our program assistance for carrying this program this past year, especially through the uncertainties of the COVID-19 era. So just wanted to recognize them because they've really been ensuring that we're navigating this time as best they can and still providing opportunities for youth. Let's see, so it's really a good opportunity now that we're bringing Emily Colleen on board. It's been certainly a little bit of a difficult transition, but now we're getting through it, and it's really nice to think about building the program into the future. So Emily has a master's in public administration she received from the Evergreen State College. And then a very interesting work history. She worked for Thurston County as the 4-H Youth Development Program Assistant from 2001 to 2004. She was then our Youth Development Program Extension Coordinator, leading the program from 2005 to 2012. Her husband is in the military, so she then departed in 2012, went to Phoenix, Arizona, worked for the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. Very interestingly, was involved in crime prevention education for the community. So a really neat tie there between youth development and crime reduction and just overall opportunities for giving positive youth educational experiences. That's kind of a neat tie-in. 2015 to 18 was at Colorado State University for the El Paso County Extension Program as an extension agent there. So as you can see, she has a wealth of related experience, and we were really thrilled to bring her back on board. And then just most recently, she was a community health services and contracts coordinator in Lewis County Public Health and Social Services. So we completed a few months search this year. It was a little delayed due to COVID and some of the uncertainties around what the budget would do. But I'm very happy to report and thank you for your continued support of the program. We didn't know if we'd get the opportunity to hire, and we have, and it's going to be a fabulous opportunity for us to bring Emily on board. So without further ado, Emily, thanks for joining us. If you'd like to say a word to the commissioners.
All right, well, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Emily Colleen, and I have a long history with Thurston County 4-H because I was a youth member and then a volunteer before having the opportunity to work for Extension. So my husband's military career took us on a little adventure, but it was a good one because not only did we get to see the desert Southwest and experience the dry climate, I got to do some really neat work that both tied in my experience with the 4-H Youth Development Program and then youth prevention. So I have that past work experience that Stephen mentioned, and also a passion for youth development and prevention programming for school-age youth. So doing a lot of work around substance abuse prevention and online safety and topics along those lines. And I'm coming into the position right as we're kicking off the new 4-H year. We started October 1st, and we are continuing with virtual delivery and celebrating some of the things that our youth are doing, connecting with their mentors and the 4-H volunteers through technology. We have kits that youth are checking out. We have a lot of youth still working on their 4-H project goals independently at home. And we're celebrating National 4-H Week right now. So it runs the 4th through the 10th. We're doing a lot of neat things, showing our 4-H spirit to get the kids excited about this coming 4-H year. You know, 4-H really thrives on that group interaction. And, you know, we're all working independently right now. So we're trying some new things to get the clubs and the kids connected through their laptops and giving them supplies to take home. The State 4-H program is funding New Year kits for all our returning 4-H members and new members that enroll by mid-November. So we have those neat resources that the youth will get to take home and then help them get started in their 4-H project learning for the year. And we're working both locally and then with neighboring counties and regionally to try some new things using technology to help the kids connect and bond and still have those valuable learning opportunities that 4-H offers. So excited to be back home. This is my home, Thurston County, and excited to be working for Thurston County 4-H, the program that meant so much to me as a youth, and nice to see faces, familiar faces coming back. So it's a good program, and I'm excited to be helping, as we say with the 4-H motto, making the best better.
Welcome, Emily.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, anything for Emily? Comments, questions about this?
Well, I'll just, I want to compliment Stephen for locating Emily, I guess, putting Emily back in the family, if you will. And to Emily, I want to say thank you very much for bringing your enthusiasm and expertise in coming home to serve our youth, because I know a lot of these folks have heard me say this before, but kids are 30% of our population, but they're 100% of our future, and we cannot invest enough in our future. Thank you.
Thank you. I would agree with that.
Commissioner Menser?
And I'll just mention that Emily was very proactive in coming to let us know of her excitement about the program. And so part of that, me finding her, is due to her enthusiasm to work with us.
Commissioner Menser?
Nothing, just welcome and nice to meet you, and hopefully meet you in person before too long. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Emily, I'd like to say, some great food in Maricopa down there in Arizona. Great food
Yes.
that we don't have up here. Are you related to a John Francis Killeen, long gone now, but from Southern California at all?
I'm unsure about that. My husband's a John, or was a John Killeen, so I'm unsure.
Okay. And 4-H is so vital. That's a vital program, as you well know. So I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad we're not leaderless in that regard. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to flood hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. This is a brief annual report related to the community rating system associated with the flood hazard mitigation plan. And I'm going to give the floor to Mark Beaver. He's going to walk you through a brief report. No action is required by the board. This is just an informational discussion.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Manager. I'm Mark Beaver with Water and Hazard Data Services, Community Planning Division of CPED. I was just going to give you a quick update on the 2019-2020 flood hazard mitigation plan updates. Like the County Manager said, this doesn't require any action on your part. It's just an informational only, and it coincides with Flood Awareness Week and your flood proclamation that you approved last week. So before I get into that, I'm going to tell you how it fits in with the framework of our insurance program. So FEMA has a national flood insurance program. This fits within that. And underneath that national flood insurance program is the community rating system. And that is an insurance program that the flood hazard mitigation plan, we get credit for that in the CRS program. You may have heard of CRS come to you in the past. Currently, we're a Class 2 rated CRS community, and there's only 8 of us, 8 Class 2s in the entire United States. So it's very important to keep that rating, and we're currently under an annual recertification right now to keep that rating as a Class 2. The Class 2 rating means that citizens get a significant reduction in flood insurance rates. So not only the citizens who live in flood hazard areas, but also general citizens who apply for flood insurance programs. So the flood hazard mitigation plan fits within that in the CRS program, in that we get significant credit for it. So as I said earlier, we get credit for the flood hazard mitigation plan, but it's also the strategy that the county uses for flood mitigation for before, during, and after floods and planning for that. So some of the highlights of this report and what we do on an annual basis is update this report and give kind of a progress report or an annual report. So 14 out of the 20 initiatives, and that's about 70%, reported ongoing action towards completion. So that means they're actively working on the program, and that's I think every department in Thurston County works on the hazard mitigation plans, the flood hazard mitigation plan, as well as the CRS certification. The board passed an interim flood hazard regulation that was adopted in July 2020. That's a big piece of the flood hazard mitigation plan. Thank you for that. Emergency management has updated several emergency support function plans this year. And as we've heard earlier, Public Works has been doing some ongoing replacements for fish passage enhancement projects. And they're continuing to remove restrictions on fish, native population, primarily salmon, but some of the other species as well that benefit from fish passage improvements. The document also discusses how many flood events we've had in the past years, changes to risk exposure within the county, mitigation success stories, overall review of the action plan, changes in capabilities that could impact the plan, and recommendations for changes in the future, or if we find any discrepancies that we need to improve upon. So that's about it for my update. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Chair had to step away and ask me to cover here. Commissioner Edwards, anything?
No, I think that was a good piece of information. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So Mark, in the reassessment of our rating, like what what missteps can you make that get you in trouble or cause you to slip back on that?
For the CRS rating?
Yeah.
What we're doing right now is the annual recertification. So we have to submit a lot of paperwork that shows that we're continuing our effort to maintain that Class 2 category. The flood hazard mitigation plan is a big piece of that. So we have that we have that ready to go. We're good on that. So that's a good piece of that plan. But we do have to keep certain levels of certifications for all the other areas within the CRS program as well. And so what we're doing right now is documenting all those items that FEMA has requested from us to maintain that category 2 or the Class 2 rating. So it's a significant amount of work. I'm the CRS coordinator this year, and my job is to coordinate all the departments so that we get that information together in one package that we submit to FEMA here. Have to have it in by October 16th. So.
Okay, coming up. You feel good about it?
It's coming up. I feel good about it at this point.
All right, great. Okay, throw it back to the chair. I think oh, Josh, go ahead.
I just want to say just real quickly, part of what Mark just did in communicating this is part of continuing to get these ratings. So it's research, plan, and communicate. And so now that he's done this, it's part of that process to make us all aware of the great work that's happening on behalf of the citizens in Thurston County in flood awareness and flood hazard prevention. So thank you to the team, but also thank you, commissioners, for your continued direction on keeping our citizens safe.
Can you repeat, Mark, what you said about, you said there's only 8 in the country, or?
That's correct. Yes, there's only 8 Class 2 communities in the entire country.
Wow.
So to get that rating is pretty difficult. There's only one Class 1 rating, so the lower the number, the better your score. So there are only 8 Class 2s in the entire United States out of hundreds of groups that participate. So it is a big benefit to our citizens because of those lower insurance rates, especially the ones who live in special flood hazard areas. So you're talking, hundreds to approaching 1,000 people that get essentially a 40% discount. But that discount also translates into the rest of the county or other citizens who want to get flood insurance. There are still variable rates of benefit at that level as well. So,
wow, that needs to be touted loud and clear. That's beautiful. And I apologize for having to step away. A very unexpected, spontaneous guest. So, I'm back. So, anything else from Mark?
Good job, Mark. Appreciate what you do.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, thank you, Josh. Emergency housing ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. You may recall the board approved emergency housing ordinance. and that goes on a 6-month basis. And I believe the ordinance is lapsing at the end of October. And so the conversation today is what will be the pleasure of the board as this interim housing ordinance is about to expire. And I believe Maya Tibble is here to walk us through the details of that ordinance, perhaps confirm when the expiration date is, and maybe provide the board with the next steps.
Thanks, Ramiro. Maya Tibble, Senior Planner with Community Planning. The item on your agenda, as County Manager described, is in regard to the interim emergency housing ordinance. This is an interim ordinance that is set to expire on December 9th, 2020, unless the board takes action to renew it.
Thank you.
The interim ordinance was originally passed under 15792 on June 25th of 2019 and originally had a 1-year work plan. The board renewed that ordinance on June 9th of this year under 15902. And you heard about this earlier today, but the Board of Health has also established a public health crisis back on June 14th of 2018 under Resolution H2 2018, declaring homelessness in the county a countywide public health crisis. So under this interim ordinance and under the Growth Management Act, these are effective for 6 months. And as I mentioned, it will expire on December 9th of 2020 unless the board takes action to renew it. So the board currently has the option to renew the ordinance or to let it expire. In order to renew the interim ordinance, the board must first hold a public hearing prior to the renewal. The board can also take action at any time to repeal the ordinance before the 6-month expiration. A little bit of information about what the interim ordinance does and the renewal. So there's not any changes proposed to the standards in the renewal. The standards set forth in the original ordinance under 15792 and the renewal under 15902 are the same. And that ordinance offers some waivers to existing requirements for homeless encampments in order to facilitate an effective and timely service in response to the public health crisis. So under the interim ordinance and with an emergency resolution enacted by the board, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development has the option to waive certain requirements for homeless encampments. A waiver of these requirements by the director is allowed for a 6-month period. It can allow things like more residents in an encampment, and it can be extended beyond the 6 months if the board holds a public hearing and finds that the public health emergency continues to exist. So what kinds of requirements can be waived? Requirements for size of encampments, the maximum number of residents that are allowed in those encampments, parking requirements, distance requirements from bus stops, right-of-way limitations, visual separation requirements. There are a few requirements that are not waivable, so the director does not have the option to waive these requirements under the interim ordinance, and that is requirement of sanitary portable toilets. Temporary structures are still required to conform with building codes, fire safety requirements, requirement of a host to provide a code of conduct, and requirement of encampment residents to sign an agreement to abide by that code of conduct. Also, the requirement of sponsoring agency to self-police, self-manage, prohibit alcohol, drugs, fighting, abuse, littering, and disruption of neighbors, that's not waivable. So this interim ordinance applies to both the rural county and the urban growth areas in Thurston County. It does not do the following. So it does not outright eliminate all of these requirements. It offers the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development the option to waive some of them. And this ordinance does not establish a camp in the rural county or the urban growth areas. Again, it just offers the director the option to waive some requirements in order to respond in a timely manner. So there are some other ongoing efforts that are tackling the broader issue of homelessness in Thurston County and also encampment siting. County staff are currently engaged in the Regional Housing Siting Committee efforts, which are considering criteria for locating encampments. That's still early on in the process and it's evolving. So that's an effort that's going on concurrently while we have this interim ordinance in effect. So the next steps regarding this interim ordinance, if the board wishes to renew it or to consider renewing it, the next step would be to schedule a public hearing Staff is prepared to bring forward an agenda item for the Tuesday board meeting on October 20th to request that public hearing. And staff would request that that public hearing be set for December 1st, 2020 in order to allow time before the ordinance expires on December 9th. After that hearing, the board will have the option to either renew the ordinance or let it expire, and that renewal would last for a period of 6 months. So I'm happy to take any questions you have.
There we go. Any questions of Maya?
I think she did a good job explaining it. No, I think it's good. Thanks.
Anything, Ty?
No questions.
I like the fact, Maya, that you reiterated that it gives an option. It's not a guarantee that they'll be waived. And these are all the itemized list that you gave us of things that cannot be waived or vital. That's things that were set by a previous board as well. So it would be, it comes back, you say December 1st optimally for a public hearing, but October 20 to set the public hearing?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. Go ahead, Ramiro.
Go ahead, Maya, sorry.
Staff would be prepared to bring this forward on the 20th to request that public hearing for December 1st.
And at that time, we'll walk you through again some of the details of the proposed interim resolution. And before you consider taking an action to set the public hearing.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments before we say goodbye to Maya? No, I have a question. Is that a dulcimer on your wall behind you, Maya?
That is a dulcimer on my wall.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Very good, Maya. Good job.
All right. That takes us to hiring exceptions.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration, I have two proposals for you to waive the hiring exceptions, or what we call the soft hiring freeze. And this one is for the senior office assistant that is in Public Works. This position became vacant on September 15, 2020. And this position provides support to solid waste, noxious weeds, sewer, and stormwater. This position does not have an impact on the general fund. The next position for your consideration is the Permit Assistant Technician 2, that's in CPED, and that provides services to the citizens who would like to process a permit within the county. This position became vacant October 1st, 2020, and this position is funded by the permit fees. So again, none of the two positions are general fund funded positions. My recommendations for you to consider lifting the hiring exception freeze for those two positions.
Commissioners have any questions of Romero regarding this?
No, okay. I think we can go along with his recommendation.
There you go. You got 3 thumbs up.
Thank you.
Public testimony, Romero?
None sort of public testimony, just like to follow up that we have received significant testimony related to Black Lake. You took an action on Black Lake last week. We have responded. Commissioner Mesa has responded on many occasions, as well as myself. We also had responded to some comments, questions related to Lawrence Lake. I believe you're going to be getting some follow-up to some of the Lawrence Lake residents related to my responses, and that is related to the use of county vehicles and how we charge the rates when those county vehicles are used to provide services to the lake management districts. Also, we have responded to some of the comments related to the Ensign Road RV parking. And I believe you reviewed those responses, responded on that. And also we provided a response to some of the emails and correspondence that you received related to from related to the consolidation of all the utilities here in the county. In that letter, we stated to the fact that no action has been taken formally by the commission to consolidate utilities, but rather this is a study that perhaps you'd like to see for options as to how we can consolidate services, and provide much better services to the ratepayers here in the county. Anyways, those are just the public testimony, public feedback we've received, the responses we have provided.
All right, thank you, sir. Any comments or questions regarding those items for Romero?
I get maybe just one issue on the lakes issue. I thought that Long Lake community had the same concerns, but you didn't hear any communication from them.
I have not received anything from Long Lake. The only thing I received is from Lawrence Lake.
Thank you.
Nothing, Ty? Okay. That takes us to the end of the items, which is the any commissioner items that my seatmates like to bring up. Commissioner Menser, do you have anything to bring up? Discuss?
I talked to the county manager about this and how we might fold this into our budget negotiation, but I was going to give you a little preview. Last night at the JazzCon meeting, we are trying to finalize our budget, and this is a change from previous years. We've moved up the budget discussion so that it could be properly considered in the jurisdiction's budget consideration. So we're trying to put the final bow on the JazzCom budget. But there's been the discussion about whether the county wanted to go to full service. So, so the board agreed to, for one more year, subsidize jurisdictional assessments. We're trying to back these subsidies out and incorporate the true cost of animal services to the jurisdictions. And if we'd done that cold turkey this year, it would have been about a 25% increase in assessments. We understood in the pandemic and budget uncertainties that nobody wanted to swallow that this year. So we've agreed for one more year to subsidize, and then we're going to step that down for over 3 years following, so that the increase is more in the 9% range. So that was a decision. And now the only decision left is whether the county would want to increase to full service. If we do not increase to full service, status quo, our assessment will be $689,000. This year it was $636,000, but then they gave us a discount on that. So we actually only paid like $555, but the actual assessment was $636. So that would go to $689. Unless we want to go to full service, which would be $930,000, an extra $241,000, understanding that if we were to go to the true cost, it would be $1,041,000. So actually an extra 70, or actually an extra 100,000 over that, but we'd be phasing that in over 3 years. But I wanted the board to have the value of those numbers, because if you decided to take if the board decided to take the 930 option this year for full service, that's going to step up a little bit over the next 3 years. And so, we're not obligated, obviously, to take any action today or this week or next week, but JazzCom would if the board could fold that into our discussions. I personally want to ask the sheriff about it, because I know the sheriff, we're going to talk to the sheriff on Thursday. The sheriff has had the burden of having animal services calls and would benefit from us doing the full service. So I'd like to hear the sheriff's perspective on how much that would benefit him in his office. But anyway, as soon as we can make the decision, the better for JazzCom. So I just wanted to throw that out there for the board to kind of know where things stand.
And I was planning to bring this item, so you have the opportunity to further discuss this on the budget presentation in the commissioner's offices tomorrow afternoon. And you can probably wrap among all the many different items the commissioner's office is proposing in the budget. And just as a matter of follow up to what Commissioner Messer stated, no news related to what the lack of the level of service that we receive based on the investment that we provide. And all of you have received many public testimony related to barking dogs and anything from just a range of that. And it does create somewhat of a conflict, because a citizen calls the sheriff's office for help, and the sheriff's office said, well, you need to call animal service. and they call animal service, and then the ping pong approach starts. And at the end, this is the citizens who are left, in my own words, holding the bag on these issues. So there is an opportunity for the board to consider what a full service is, or what type of level of service the board is planning to support as we move on to the 2021 budget. I appreciate the fact the JustCom, I believe Sarah's leadership has moved this conversation early in the process, because last year it was similar request, but it was a little bit too late because the board at that time has already made the decisions on the budget, so it becomes a little bit difficult to implement that request. So I just want to follow up to what Commissioner Messer stated.
Yes, well, one more thing there before I ask Robin and Hutch for their input. Ramiro had pointed out that there had been a discussion point coming about maybe standardizing fees across the jurisdictions and maybe even raising them up a little bit to increase revenue. That could chunk down. We're going to have that discussion at our retreat on the 26th of October. I don't think that's going to make a massive difference, but it could help chip away at that increase if we were to make some policy changes there. Go ahead, Hutch.
Well, I was going to ask if that's a hike for all jurisdictions or just for the county, because we're not the.
So I'll have the numbers. Increases. I'll have the numbers in hard for you tomorrow. Sarah's sending them over, and Thomasina's printing them out. The answer to your question is, yeah, everybody's roughly. I mean, the formula is such that it's not identical, but everybody's roughly the same. If the county goes to full service, oddly enough, it does increase the city's, the way the formula works, and I can't totally explain this to you. It slightly increases the city's assessment as well, but last night the cities all said they're more than willing to pay that extra amount. It's $6,000 to $10,000 per city. Not much compared to what we're paying, but in order to get full service and consistency across the county, they'd be more than happy to pay either assessment. It's totally up to us whether we want to go to the higher level of service, at this time.
We've had some vicious dog attacks, bites, and nuisance dangerous dogs. But I'm curious what you're looking to get from the sheriff, because they don't respond to any animal calls.
Well, they don't, but I mean, I've had conversations with the sheriff, and the sheriff has sent letters to Animal Services. They get calls, and if it's a situation that we're not paying Animal Services to respond to, the citizen's only recourse is the sheriff. Now they can say I'm not doing that, but they do have the option to do it, and I know on occasion they do it. And so if the sheriff says, "Hey, this is worth $100,000 to me to not have to deal with this anymore," or if it's worth $5,000, like whatever. I mean, if the sheriff were to pipe in and say, "This is really meaningful to me. If you guys would do that," that could color my perspective on it. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I know the sheriff would like us to pay for full service so that he doesn't have to deal with that. But I just don't know in dollars and cents terms how much he cares. And that's something I want to ask him, because it would play on my position as to whether it's worth the extra money.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question.
Robin had a question.
But Robin wanted to go.
Okay.
I was just going to ask for the numbers that you were citing. It sounds like we'll have those tomorrow.
Yeah, I can just tell you it's right here. It's the subsidized status quo is $689,000 would be our new assessment if we decide to just stick with the status quo, rather than $799 if we weren't subsidized. But the board voted to subsidize, so that's $799 is just for your reference. It would be a $689,000 bill or a $930,000 bill. Again, that would be the subsidized true full service bill for Thurston County.
But in the upcoming years, that will increase because the subsidy will step back.
The subsidy is $210,000. So that subsidy, but that's split across jurisdictions. The subsidy would then be only $140,000 next year, $70,000 the year after, and no subsidy at all the year after.
So how are they subsidizing? where is that money coming from that they're using to subsidize?
They have a reserve fund.
JASCOM has a whole bunch of reserve funds of various types. A resiliency reserve, an operating reserve, and then other kinds of like more targeted reserves. We're basically going to be taking it from our recession resiliency reserve. And then we'll decide whether we have under our policies, we have 4 years to back that money back into it. And there's an argument that we don't even necessarily need that kind of a reserve. The board will decide and discuss whether we will or we won't try to build that back up depending on the economy and our, the board members at the time.
Well, thank you.
Right, Gary.
How many dollars are brought in through licensing fees in the county?
I don't have that number handy, Commissioner.
Well, is there any chance maybe, Robin, if we're going to discuss this tomorrow, you could find that number for us?
I can attempt to get it. The last time I tried to find it, it was hard to find, but I'll see what I can do.
I can check with Sarah and maybe get that for you guys through JASCOM.
Thank you.
Okay.
Comes through the auditor.
Okay. Gary, do you have any issues to bring up? Commissioner items?
I'm just curious how far we got as far as that, the mini grants to the destination farms that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Have we come to any benefit for those folks through maybe the EDC or Thurston Strong? Does anybody have any more information on that?
No, last week you decided to allocate funding, and I believe $700,000 through the Thurston Strong to create a brand new program to provide subsidies to the agricultural side of the county. Those allocations, the program has already been set up by Thurston Strong. So I really don't have an update whether somebody has already benefited from that.
Oh, okay, but you think it's in place now?
Oh, it's moving forward. So we're currently on the decision of the board as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it, Gary? Any other items?
No, that's going to be it. I guess I thought we were trying to wind down at 11:30, so I was trying to be speeded along.
Ty, do you have nothing else? Okay.
Nothing else.
Nor do I. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting then, and we will convene again at 2 o'clock for the board meeting. Thank you all very much for joining in.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Romero, I'm not going to,